Hey everybody, my name is Brendan Noble and I'm a young adult author. Welcome back to my Slavic Saturday series where we talk about Slavic history, mythology, and folklore related to my Slavic fantasy book series, the first of which is called A Dagger in the Winds. You can find out more about the program I have around that, where you can potentially help as a beta reader or a preview reader in the description below. But today we're talking more about specifically the folklore side of things with a Polish fairy tale called The Bear in the Forest Hut. This is by Antoni Joseph Galiński. He was a Polish author that collected a lot of different Polish fairy tales, and this happens to be one of them. It's a pretty famous fairy tale, and specifically, I'll talk about some of the themes related to it. I'm going to do a summarized kind of version of it and then say how some of these kind of themes relate to both Slavic folklore and mythology, but also other folk tales that we often know of. So The Bears in the Forest Hut starts out as a kind of classic story where you have a hardworking father, a evil stepmother, and an evil stepsister, and then a nice and kind daughter of the original father. And this family kind of has the situation where the mother treats the original daughter very poorly, but treats her stepdaughter very well. She tortures her and eventually tells the father to throw her out of the house, saying, "Your wretched daughter is always giving me trouble. She is an ill-tempered, spoiled hussy, and that I cannot do anything with her. So if you wish for peace in the house, you must put her into your wagon, drive her away into the forest, and come back without her." So this is actually kind of a death sentence in old Slavic times, because the forest was a very dangerous place, and there was a lot of space between civilized areas. So you were expected to die in the woods, and it's exactly what the stepmother wanted. But the father was under her control and did it anyway, even though he loved his daughter. And so he drops her off in the forest, leaves, and only gives her a little bit of bread. So this girl, who also doesn't have a name, should be mentioned. Unlike most folk tales, the main character has no name. She's just known as the girl. But she wanders the woods and eventually comes up into a hut in the woods, and she knocks. No one's there, so she goes in and tries to see if anyone's there, and there's still no one here. But then she hears a voice in the woods, and the voice in the woods says, "Wanderer, outcast, forsaken, whom the night has overtaken, if no crime your conscience stain, in this hut tonight remain." When the voice ceased, she answered, "I am outcast and forsaken, yet unstained by crime am I. Be you rich or be you poor, for this night let me here lie." So the girl's response can kind of sound odd to a casual reader, but in Slavic culture, in a lot of folk tales as well, hospitality is incredibly important, so it wouldn't have seemed too odd for a traveler to ask to stay the night at a hut along the way on their travels, especially a lost girl in this situation. But this was no man, actually, the voice in the woods. It was a bear, and when the bear emerged, she began to weep, and she told him, and he tried to comfort her and said, "Why are you here?" She gives him the entire story of what happened to her, and he responds by saying, "Do not cry, pretty one, you shall be happy yet. But in the meantime, you must do just what I tell you. Do you see that flax? You must spin it into thread. Of that thread you must weave cloth, and of that cloth you must make me a shirt. I shall come here tomorrow at the same time, and if the shirt is ready, I will reward you." And so the girl goes to work, working very hard. She doesn't think that she's going to be able to finish this shirt in time, because this is a very long process between the spinning wheel and loom and everything. But she actually completes it in time. She finishes the last stitch in the shirt right as the bear appears again, and he is very ecstatic when he sees that she's done the hard work and completed the task, and he says, "Thank you, my good girl. Now I must reward you. You told me you had a bad stepmother. If you like, I will send my bears to tear her and her daughter in pieces." So there's a pretty harsh punishment there, but despite the bear's offer, the girl decides to offer her stepmother mercy, tells him not to do it, and tries to avoid the death of the people that tried to kill her. The bear honors her wish and does not choose to kill the stepmother, and he just asks that she make some porridge for them to eat that night. She makes the porridge. While she's making the porridge, a mouse comes out of the cupboard, tells her that he is starving, and asks for a little bit of porridge. She, seeing the mouse's plight, gives him a little bit of porridge, and the mouse scuttles back away. They enjoy the porridge, and then the bear returns and says that she must jangle a set of keys all night long while he sleeps, and if she's still jangling the keys come morning, then she will be very happy and well rewarded for it. So the bear goes to sleep, and then when the bear sleeps, she starts jangling the keys, and the mouse comes out again, and the mouse says, "Give me the keys, mistress, I will jingle them for you, but you must hide yourself behind the stove, for the stones will soon be flying about." Which sounds odd, but then when the girl decides to hide behind the stove, that was a very massive stove that's kind of considered very common in a lot of Slavic homes. It was used to heat during the winter months. But she hides behind the stove, and the mouse runs around jangling the keys, and occasionally the bear would wake up and throw stones from his room into the room in which she was supposed to be jangling the keys, and he would call out, "Are you alive?" And she would respond, "I am alive." And this process repeats multiple times until he wakes up in the morning. The mouse gives her back the keys. He sees her jangling the keys, and then the bear says, "O daughter of the old man, you are blessed of heaven, for here I was, a powerful monarch, changed by enchantment into a bear until some living soul should spend 2 nights in this hut. And now I shall soon become a man again and return to my kingdom, taking you for my wife. But before this comes to pass, do you look into my right ear?" The old man's daughter threw back her hair and looked into the right ear of the bear. She saw a beautiful country with millions of people, with high mountains, deep rivers, impenetrable forests, and pastures covered with flocks, well-to-do villages, and rich cities. "What seest thou?" asked the bear. "I see a lovely country. That is my kingdom. Look into my left ear." She looked, and she could not admire what she saw. A magnificent palace, and with many carriages and horses in the courtyard, and in the carriages, rich robes, jewels, and all kinds of rarities. The bear then asked her which of the carriages was her favorite. She said one with 4 horses that was golden. He gave it to her. It appears outside, and he tells her that as he leaves, that the father will come soon, and when she goes back for her father, he will eventually return with the enchantment done. He is going to be healthy and a man again, and he will come and make her his queen. And meanwhile, he gives her a golden gown and a lot of jewelry to go with, and she eventually leaves with her father back to the original house. And when she returns to her house, the stepmother is incredibly jealous of all these jewels and everything that her stepdaughter has come home with. So the other daughter, the stepsister, gets sent by the stepmother to the location where the bear's hut was, in hopes of the stepdaughter also accomplishing the task. But instead, when all these tasks happen, she fails to make the shirt, she doesn't give the food to the mouse, and so when the time comes for the stones to be thrown, she is crushed by one of the rocks because the mouse does not help her. So as the stepmother mourns her daughter's death, the king eventually returns, and it says, a royal carriage drew up in the courtyard of the old man's cottage, bright as the sun, with 4 splendid horses, and the coachman cracked his whip till the cottage fell to pieces with the sound. The king took both the old man and his daughter into the carriage, and they drove away to his capital, where the marriage soon took place. The old man lived happily in his declining years, and as the father-in-law of a king, and with his sweet daughter, who had once been so miserable, a queen. So this can be a kind of familiar story somewhat to those of us familiar with Cinderella, or which is the Germanic tale, or Vasilisa the Beautiful as well, which is a very popular Russian tale. This kind of is a Polish twist on this Cinderella story, where it's obviously you have the evil stepmother, evil stepsister, and the daughter who works very hard but is still punished for it. But it kind of, again, has the Slavic twist on it, especially with the bear, which is a very spiritual, powerful symbol in Slavic folklore and mythology. The bear is connected to Veles, who is the god of the underworld, cattle, and the lowlands. But the bear also is significant because the Slavs tended to live often in densely forested areas. And when you think of a forest, there can be many dangers within it, And one of the most powerful creatures, if not the most powerful creature in the the forest, is the bear. And so this bear, as the king of the forest, represents this kind of the element of the unknown in the forest and how powerful it can be. And that makes sense why he would be the king then in the story, which is a fun twist on it compared to Vasilisa the Beautiful, who runs into Baba Yaga instead of the bear. And most of all, folk tales are also supposed to tell us about what kind of traits were respected and honored in the culture. And like many others with this story, it talks about how humility, hard work, diligence, and showing mercy to other people was considered a very positive thing. The girl chose to both work hard, not kill her stepmother, and was vastly rewarded for it. And meanwhile, the traits that she had in her stepsister didn't show in that contrast. And I think it's also important that the girl doesn't have a name in the story. It's very unique. Usually the characters do have names in fairy tales, but she doesn't. I think that brings that element of anyone could be the girl in this story. There isn't just one name. It's not just Cinderella or Vasilisa. It is a generic, anyone could be this, and allows anyone to step into those shoes and say how they would act in that role of that fairy tale. So I think that's interesting, but that's all I have for you guys on this week's Slavic Saturday series. If you enjoy these videos, please remember to like and subscribe down below. I come out with a video every Saturday on Slavic mythology, history, and folklore. And also, if you're interested more about my book series, you can join my newsletter down below. Every month I send out a update about my writing, and you also can get free access to some side novellas and the stories, and also will get first access to chances to read the book. So I hope you guys all have a great week, and I'll see you all next Saturday.